Cheaters are everywhere. There are many different types of cheaters, and each one has a unique story to tell. Since we're living in a world where many are getting married and divorcing, divorce can be a very humiliating ordeal. It can lead to a loss of self-esteem, but it's comforting to have friends and family who support you through it all. Life is a precious gift, too valuable to waste on feeling sorry for oneself. Today's story was published by a beer maker and is about a husband who unexpectedly discovers that his wife has been cheating on him for 30 years, turning his world dark. Now, let's delve into the story and see what transpired. Hi, I'm Jim Nettles, and this is my story. I guess when you're happy, you tend to ignore what's really happening around you. Then, unexpectedly, you discover your wife is cheating on you, and your world turns dark. I had suspected my 18-year-old daughter and her friends of sneaking into the basement to drink my homemade beer. However, the camera I installed in the basement caught my wife with her boyfriend, both drinking my beer. Update: JT and I are members of a beer club here in Atlanta. He discovered that his wife of 25 years had been cheating on him for over 24 years. He shared his story at one of our beer club meetings. One piece of advice he gave was to remove your rose-colored glasses and examine your marriage closely. Karen and I have 3 children and have been married for almost 28 years. Life seemed great. Karen, the only child of Ben and Alice Thompson, grew up in a world of luxury. Even at 49, Karen could easily pass for 35. I'm unsure if I was raised middle class, but I was brought up in a loving family in a small town outside of Atlanta. I'm the younger of 2 boys and grew up next door to my grandparents. My father worked at my grandfather's hardware store, and my brother Ken and I worked there after school and on weekends. Ken attended Georgia Tech and now works as an electrical engineer for a paper company in South Carolina. Following in my big brother's footsteps, I also went to Georgia Tech, majoring in computer science. Every small town has its rich kid, and Joey was ours. Joey and I have been best friends since we were 3. While I was at Georgia Tech, Joey was at Emory. We often set each other up on blind dates. Karen was one of those blind dates at Emory, and she was the only one I ever called back for a second date. As seniors, we spent as much time together as possible. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. However, there was a challenge I had to address before proposing. I was raised to work hard and provide for my family. Karen, on the other hand, had never worked a day in her life. My pride wouldn't let me rely on her parents' wealth. If she agreed to marry me, we'd be on our own. Thankfully, she agreed. When I started working, my dad advised me to save 10% of everything I earned for the future. I used part of my savings to buy Karen an engagement ring. The day after I proposed, we informed her parents. While Karen and her mother began wedding planning, Karen's father and I had a separate conversation. He inquired about my post-graduation plans, and I informed him about my new job in Atlanta. He seemed pleased. 3 months later, Ben invited me to his study. He expressed his fondness for me but, as a protective father, handed me a prenuptial agreement to sign. I remembered my father's advice. Never sign anything without reading it thoroughly, asking questions, seeking advice, and giving it careful thought. Before signing, he sat and waited for me to finish reading the agreement. The agreement stated that if our marriage failed within the first 5 years, I'd receive $100,000 and wouldn't be entitled to any other assets from Karen or her family. Every 10 years, the money limits increased and capped at $5 million on our 25th wedding anniversary. I sat there, looking at him with my mouth open, trying to decide how to respond. After a few minutes, I told him, "Sir, I love your daughter and plan to spend the rest of my life loving her. However, the business side of me understands where you're coming from. I'll take this with me and think about it." He said, "Good, I'll wait for your response." My father is always the first person I go to for advice, so I went to see him. Dad took his time reading it through twice before saying, "Jim, we both know why Ben wants this agreement. The way it's written, it only protects his family. My question is, what do you want out of this marriage, and what do you want to protect from them?" We discussed my goals, feelings, dreams, and long-term future with Karen. Dad said, "I've always operated on the belief that if you ask me to give up something, then you need to give up something as well. Ben's attorney is looking out for the Thompsons, which he's paid to do. He sees you as a country boy with nothing to lose and a lot to gain. You and I both understand why he wants this agreement. Ben believes you love Karen now, but he's worried about something happening later. If you or I were in his place, we'd be doing the same thing." He paused, then said, "Jim, a marriage fails for several reasons. This prenuptial states any reason. Being together in college is one thing, and being a married working couple is something else. Can you and Karen work through the rough spots? You may discover you can't live together because of your jobs, friends, money, lack of money, parents, or anything else. Do you want Ben's money because your marriage didn't work out? What would end a marriage that would make you want his money? God, I'm glad I went and talked with Dad. I called my brother, Ken, and got his feedback, and it basically sounded like I was talking with Dad again. After talking with several other people I trusted, I knew the changes I'd make to the prenuptial and how to discuss them with Ben. Update 1. On our next visit to see Karen's parents, I asked Ben for a few minutes of his time. He looked at me, saying, "Let's go into my study and give these ladies time to discuss the wedding." As we entered the study, I pulled out the prenuptial agreement Ben had given me. "Sir, I've given this a lot of thought, and I'd like to make a few changes." He got ready to say something, pause, then nodded his head, telling me to continue. "I understand and can appreciate your position. I'm marrying your daughter because I love her. So, what I propose is, for the first 10 years of the marriage, you deposit $100,000 into an investment account. He and I will determine together where the investment of these funds goes. We'll meet once a quarter to discuss this. I feel this will give us a chance to bond with each other. If the marriage fails, then you keep the money. Karen and I'll split assets we acquired during our marriage 50-50s. This excludes assets we acquire from you or my parents. If this marriage ends in divorce because I committed adultery, then you keep the money, and Karen gets 100% of the assets we acquired during our marriage. This excludes assets we acquire from you or my parents. If this marriage ends in divorce because Karen commits adultery, then I get the money and 100% of the assets we acquired during the marriage. Once again, this excludes assets we acquire from you or my parents. Karen and I will get total control of the investment account on our 43rd wedding anniversary." I paused, giving him time to think. A smile crossed his face. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Son, your offer is very interesting. It shows you love my daughter. Your offer clearly indicates you're not interested in Karen for her money. Your proposal to jointly manage the investment fund is truly creative. I agree this would give us something to do together, plus I stay in control for 43 years. What I don't understand is you not wanting to split anything in case of adultery. I have 2 questions. First, why 43 years, and please explain the adultery split." The answer to 43 years is easy. Karen and I'll be 65 years old, and the money will be used for retirement. He laughed and nodded his head for me to continue. If the marriage fails because we tried but can't work out our differences, then everything is even. We gave it all we had to make it work. Why punish the other person? Now, if either of us commits adultery, then that's something we're doing on purpose, and a marriage can't survive the betrayal and distrust left in its wake. Marriage is the joining of two to make one. Our mission is to be true to each other for the rest of our lives. If Karen is unhappy with me, she can ask for a divorce, then she can see anyone she wants to. I'll be true to Karen, and the only way for me to seek revenge is if she commits adultery while married to me. Does this answer your questions? Yes, son, you answered my questions. I'll have a new agreement drawn up for your review. Let's go join the ladies. A few weeks later, we brought Karen in and explained the prenuptial agreement to her. Karen was surprised to find out this had been going on, and never considered it a possibility. Karen looked up after reading it and asked, "Jim, are you okay with this?" "Yes, Karen," she replied, taking time to reread the agreement. "Jim, why 43 years? And what's this about adultery?" I laughed and responded, "Your father asked me the same thing. In 43 years, we'll be 65 years old. Consider it our retirement fund." Karen sat there smiling. If we work at making our marriage work and fail, then we divorce and move on, knowing we tried. Adultery is done on purpose. Going behind someone's back, lying about where you've been and who you were with. I can't conceive of anything more devastating or dishonest to a marriage. If I'm not good enough for you, or you feel the need for someone else, then ask me for a divorce. I wouldn't be disrespected, nor will I be a fool. I love you, and I'll be true to you and ask the same from you. We had a great wedding and a fantastic honeymoon. Update 2. We've been married almost 28 years and have 3 children. Dan, our oldest at 26, was named after my father. He is working for one of Ben's companies, where Ben is grooming him to take over the family businesses. He's been accepted into an MBA program starting this fall. Benny, 25, loves the outdoors and joined my dad after graduating from college. As you can see, Benny is named after Karen's dad. My dad's very happy to have someone in the family take over the farm and hardware store. My brother and I left the farm as soon as we could. Amy, our surprise child, turned 18 3 months ago and has me wrapped around her little finger. She's the best athlete of our children and has accepted a full scholarship to play soccer at UNC next year. After the boys left for college, I converted the basement game room into a brew pub. Karen and I like to entertain, and the pub has become very popular with our family and friends. For a few months, I've suspected someone of stealing my beer. No, I don't take inventory, it's just a feeling. While packing a few beers for a beer club meeting, I couldn't find any bottles of IPA. Fred Jones was at the meeting that night, and I told him I thought my 18-year-old daughter was sneaking my beer from my pub. Do you let your daughter drink beer? No, I let her have a taste if she wants to. What makes you think it's her? The beer seems to disappear when I travel out of town, but it can't be Karen. I've never seen her drink a whole glass of my beer. She prefers wine. The boys like my beer when they visit. I send them home each with a case of beer. That leaves Amy and her friends. Well, I can install a motion-controlled surveillance camera in the pub, and you can bust her with the tape. What a great idea. Can you install the camera tomorrow morning while Amy is in school? Will 11 a.m. work? Thank you. I'll see you at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Frank arrived right on time, and he had everything installed within 15 minutes. He spent another 20 minutes teaching me how to operate it. Are you going to tell Karen about the camera? No, she'd probably slip and tell Amy about it. So when's your next trip? I'm going to Cleveland next week. I'll leave on Wednesday, returning on Thursday. Have a safe trip and let me know if you get her on tape. We left the system turned on and went to lunch. Update 3. Every time I went into my pub, I drank a beer and checked the tape. The only people caught on tape were the cleaning crew that comes in on Tuesday and Friday mornings, and me. I didn't get home from Cleveland until 1 a.m. Friday morning due to a 2-hour flight delay. I spent Friday at the office. Friday night, Karen and I had dinner with her parents and then attended a play. We had a barbecue at our house on Sunday. After church, we visited my parents. When we got home, I went to sleep in my easy chair. Monday night, when Karen was at a meeting and Amy was at soccer practice, I checked the tape. 5 minutes into watching the tape, my world fell apart. I expected to see Amy and her friends. Instead, I saw Karen enter my pub, holding hands with Jerome. His wife, Diana, and daughter moved into the neighborhood about 8 months ago. Jerome's daughter, Nicole, and Amy quickly became close friends. I went numb seeing my wife bent over the arm of my favorite chair with Gerald. How long I sat there staring at the screen, I don't know. It wasn't until I realized I was watching tape from Sunday's barbecue that I snapped out of my daze. I wish I'd installed audio recorders along with the camera. My shock turned into anger, then rage. Dan had always stressed working through problems with a clear head, instead of letting anger control you. Do your homework, gather your facts, understand your problem, then decide how to handle the problem. People make stupid decisions when angry. I needed hard facts. While the tape was rewinding, I took several deep breaths, trying to calm down, and watched the tape again. It's obvious this wasn't their first time. After she got him a beer, they sat there talking. While the son of a gun drank my beer, Jerome was getting dressed. Karen got him another beer, and she dressed while he drank the beer. The jerk was with my wife, drank my beer, and took my bottles. I stopped the tape and called Frank. He answered on the third ring. Frank called, "It's Jim Nettles. Do you have a few minutes?" "Yes." "Did you catch your daughter stealing your beer?" "No, I caught my wife with a neighbor, and I need your professional services." "I'm sorry to hear that. What do you need?" "Everything. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Hang on, let me check my schedule. How about 4 o'clock tomorrow?" "Great. I'll see you then. What do I need to bring?" The tape, his name, address, phone number, work address, Karen's schedule, and when you'll be out of town again. See you at 4. Thank goodness Karen wasn't home yet, which gave me time to control my emotions. About an hour later, Amy came downstairs, letting me know she was home. We walked upstairs, where she told me about her next soccer game. I assured her I'd be there. I'm not one to hide from problems, so I decided to stay up and wait for my cheating wife to get home. I still wondered if she was at a meeting that night or if she was out getting drunk. Oh well, I thought, Frank will find out. Update 4. At 3:55, I walked into Frank's office, ready for battle. He told me he was sorry to hear about Karen cheating on me. I said, "I've talked with JT, and he told me how you and Mike Ford handled his case. You're the expert. What do you recommend?" "I know about the prenuptial agreement, and you have all the evidence you need to prove adultery. What do you want?" "I know, but I want to know everything about Jerome. His past, his wife, his family. I want him followed 24/7. I want to know what he does, who he sees, how he makes money, and what he values most in his life. The SOB will pay for messing up my life. Not only do I want him followed, but I also want Karen followed 24/7. That will take time and manpower to gather all the information you want. I'll get my staff started on this first thing in the morning. I recommend we install cameras and recorders in all rooms of your house as well as Karen's car." "Good idea. I wish we had audio from last week. So, when's your next trip?" 3 weeks from today. I'll be out for 4 days." "Great. We should have enough information by then. Did you bring the tape?" "Yes, I brought what you asked me to bring. When can we get into your house to install the new system?" Karen plays bridge on Thursday mornings. How long do you need? We'll need at least 2 hours. Okay, I'll meet you at my house on Thursday at 9:30. When I left Frank's office, I felt better, knowing something was being done. Now, all I had to do was wait. 3 weeks later, I kissed my wife goodbye for the last time and left for Austin, Texas. The past 3 weeks felt like 3 years. McFord had all the legal paperwork ready, and I had it in my briefcase. I would be the one serving Karen with the divorce papers. I went to JT's instead of going to Austin, knowing that my marriage would be over tomorrow. As expected, Frank came by with the news I'd been expecting. The woman came over 45 minutes after I left, and they were intimate twice in our bed. Karen asked him if he could spend tomorrow night with her, since Amy was spending the night with a friend. After many hours of deliberation, I finally decided how to handle Karen's exposure. What I really wanted to do was throw them both out of my house. The next afternoon, I called Karen's father and asked him to meet me at his office. I told him I had a problem and needed his guidance. He agreed to meet me at 6:30 that evening. Ben met me at the door with questioning eyes. Sir, I've always viewed you as another father, and I'm glad I've gotten to know you over the past 29 years. Because I respect you and consider you my father, I've decided to treat you with the same respect I would my own father in this situation. Jim, what are you talking about? Well, sir, tonight I'm serving Karen with divorce papers on grounds of adultery. What in heaven's name is going on? I have tapes of Karen and her lover being intimate in our bed. In fact, your daughter and her boyfriend are currently in our marital bed as we speak. This can't be happening. What are you going to do? Well, sir, I've looked at this several ways. What I want to do is go over there and throw them out of my house. You can't be serious. Yes, I'd love to do that if I didn't respect you. However, I have another option I want to discuss with you. For the next 45 minutes, we discussed my plan, and he agreed it was the best way to handle it. Final update. At 9:15, Ben and I met Frank Jones, Brad Williams, McFord, Steve Collins, and an Atlanta police detective at my house. I introduced everyone, and Frank informed us they were in the master bedroom. We were on the front porch talking when Frank heard in his earpiece that they were being intimate. I unlocked the front door, leading everyone into the living room. Looking at Ben, I said, I'm sure you don't want to see your daughter in that situation. Why don't you wait downstairs? Once again, I promised him I wouldn't physically hurt Karen. Brad followed us up the stairs, carrying a video camera. We wanted to record them before we entered, and we wanted them to know they were being recorded. Our plan was to stand outside the door, waiting until the right moment to go in. As we walked down the hall toward the bedroom, you could hear the sounds of their intimacy. Those were the sounds of making love, not just being intimate. We got ready to enter. Karen sat there with the sheet pulled up to her neck, and Jerome was trying to cover himself with a pillow. Jerome, I'd like to introduce you to these fine people. First, this is Frank Jones, an investigator. Standing beside him is Mike Ford, my divorce attorney. Next, meet Steve Collins, an Atlanta police detective. Brad is operating the camera. I'd like nothing more than to throw you both out of my house, but I have other plans for you. In case you're wondering, the entire house has been recording everything for the past 3 weeks. Karen, I continued, I know Jerome is an old boyfriend of yours. Over the past 3 weeks, I've learned you wanted to marry him instead of me. Everyone in this room knows you married me because your parents wouldn't have approved of Jerome. He and I both know you married me so you could give your parents grandchildren, ensuring there would be an heir. Good news. They have 3 heirs, so your family line is secure for another generation. Jim, please shut up, Karen interjected. I don't care what you have to say, not now, not in the future. There's absolutely nothing you can say that changes the fact you found another man in our bed. You can't expect me to believe this was a mistake. I have you on tape inviting this man to spend the night with you after he was with you twice in our bed, just 2 hours after I left town. Save your breath, I don't believe a thing you say. Looking at Gerald, I said, I must say, you are truly a player. For the past 3 weeks, you've been under surveillance. Frank's team put together a very detailed report on your activities. Turning to Frank, I asked him to play the DVD for Jerome and Karen. Karen, pay close attention. I want you to see your lover for who he truly is. The video showed scenes of Jerome with Karen and 2 other women. But the most revealing part was a scene of Jerome and his buddies at a restaurant last week. They were discussing his affairs with married women, including Karen. At this time, Jerome was yelling at me, and Karen was distraught. Frank and Steve moved over beside Jerome and told him to calm down. Jerome, we're almost through here. Just settle down and listen. We're not going to harm you unless we have to. But your brothers-in-law have other plans for you. Your wife and her brothers were not happy when we shared our information with them. Why don't you get dressed? Your ride should be here by now. Before you go, you need to know I've given copies of this information to the husbands of the 2 women you've been seeing, as well as to your wife. You did what? I'll get you for this. You just threatened me in front of my attorney and a police detective. Not to mention, your threat has been recorded on tape. Mac handed me a stack of papers which I then gave to Gerald. These are divorce papers. Your wife asked me to give them to you. And before I forget, she asked me to tell you to go to hell and not to come home. I then turned to look at my wife. So, how does it feel knowing the love of your life was playing you for a fool? How does it feel knowing you were just another conquest to Jerome? How does it feel knowing you've destroyed our family? Letting my words sink in, I continued, I told you 30 years ago the worst thing you could do to our marriage was to cheat on me. It's bad enough to destroy our marriage, but to do so for a man like Jerome is inexcusable. From today forward, you've ruined every holiday, every birthday, every graduation, every wedding, and every special family event. She just lay on the bed, crying. You're not worth wasting any more time on. Get dressed, your father is waiting for you downstairs. The hardest task I ever had was telling our children about their mother's affair. Seeing the pain in their eyes, answering their questions, and watching them deal with the aftermath was painful. When Karen cheated on me, she also cheated our children out of a family. My parents' reaction was a mirror image of my children's. Epilogue. She received a soccer scholarship from North Carolina and joined the Emory soccer team to be close to her father. Our compromise was that she could attend Emory, but she had to live on campus with her teammates. She helped me remodel the master bedroom and buy new furniture. When she's not home, I sleep in the guest room. Dan and Benny stop by to check on me more often than before. One of the things I enjoy the most is attending my beer club meetings with them. Benny has taken on the challenge of growing hops for the beer club. We're going to have a contest to see who brews the best beer using Benny's hops. I know Amy keeps tabs on me and ensures her brothers stay in contact. Based on advice from the attorneys, Karen and I settled for a no-fault divorce. Ben agreed I had proof of Karen's adultery and didn't need to charge her with adultery to gain control of the investment fund, as per the prenuptial agreement. This way, Alice and Karen were spared the embarrassment of a public trial. I allowed Ben and Alice to go through Karen's belongings and take her personal items. 2 months later, Karen's dad asked me to meet him at his office. We often spoke on the phone, so his request for a formal meeting surprised me. For the past 25 years, Ben has wanted me to join the family business. I've always declined, wanting to earn my way without riding his coattails. However, he surprised me by suggesting it again. I immediately raised my hand, signaling him to stop. He explained his reasons, emphasizing his age and the need for someone to groom Dan for the future. I asked for a few days to consider. 3 days later, I accepted Ben's offer. Dan is excited about his role as caretaker of the family business, but Ben is right, he's years away from taking over. We meet monthly with Dan, Benny, and Amy to discuss the family business, ensuring everyone is informed and supported. Karen moved to Florida with her parents but remains in touch with the children. Dan and Benny visit her in Florida several times a year, and Amy spends a few weeks with her each summer. Karen also attends some of Amy's soccer games, keeping her distance from me. Alice is recovering but will likely never return to Atlanta. As for Gerald, his life spiraled after his wife divorced him. He was implicated in multiple divorce cases and is now financially ruined. He moved out west. He wasn't the sole culprit, though. The women involved chose their paths. I hope to find love again in the future. Until then, I'll cherish my children and look forward. Thanks for joining us today. Please make sure to drop a like to support our channel.